Welcome back to the 40 Portal. I'm Catherine Zach. I'm your host. You can call me Cath. Everyone does. Welcome to the portal, babe. Last night, like literally last night, I was sitting outside under the full moon, as one does, in a group of 6 women. And it was the full moon. It was May 1st. It was the pagan Celtic festival of Beltane, which I believe is the exact midway point between the spring equinox and the summer solstice. And everyone brought a little something. And I always tell the women that I'm working with, like in my client work, like, bring your own supply, get high on your own supply. And what I mean by that is, like, show up to the party or show up to the gathering of your life, show up to work, show up to your relationships, so deeply connected to what it is that you need to be yourself, regardless of what is happening around you. And so some of us brought candy, some of us brought, I brought garlic knots. People brought their like little cannabis drinks and their mocktails and a bottle of wine. And it was just such a good hang. And we talked about everything from like a kitchen renovation to divorce and like child custody issues and, casual existential crises, like bullshit we're dealing with at work. Everything was there. So, God, one woman describing the fact that she's lived in her home with her husband for 21 years. And that's some of the shit you can only say once you cross the threshold to 40. And the purpose of this gathering was simply to be together, to mark the passage of time, to sit with each other, to howl at the moon, and just like let some shit go. Throw it into the literal fire. And I couldn't help but think about this podcast because truly there is magic that happens when we gather with each other and tell and share the simple stories about who we are and who we are becoming. And that is the entire thesis of the 40 Portal. And today's episode is that embodied. My guest and I met in like a really circuitous way. I'll let you listen to the episode to hear, but our relationship was forged out of something else in my life that, quote unquote, didn't work out. And I think a lot of us have had those moments, whether it's a relationship, a job, a move we made, a thing we tried and like miserably failed at. When those things happen, we can often look at it and be like, oh, I wouldn't have done this if I knew it wasn't going to work out. But we have to do those things because we never know how they're going to work out. And then, of course, years later, that quote unquote thing that didn't work out led me to today's guest. And there is such magic in the winding paths that we are taking to and toward each other and kind of like orbiting around each other as we move through the decades of our life. This conversation is a good hang if you are or have ever experienced a sense of overwhelm or burnout. This episode is for you. If you're thinking about your female friendships, this episode is for you. If you want a few like actual like concrete things you can take with you to deal with burnout and overwhelm, this episode is for you. If you're exploring desire and pleasure right now, this episode is for you. And if you know of any women who are also curious about those things, if you are having conversations in your real life about these things, please send today's episode to a friend. Send it to 3 friends. That's how this podcast grows. When you share it out, that's how this thing gets to stick around a little bit longer. And I appreciate you listening. I appreciate your comments and your reviews and your subscribing and your likes or whatever those things are that we do and we click and we pop and we follow. So if you have an extra minute today, when you get to the end of this episode, can you do one of those things? Send it to a friend. Make sure you're subscribed to the podcast. You can find us over on Substack And we're building a little community over there, which is what people are doing on Substack. Love that for us. And one of the ideas I'm playing around with for the paid tier of the subscription, which is like $8 a month or something, is a very low-key book club. I talk about so many books on this podcast. My guests talk about books. Books are some of my greatest teachers, and that is one of the ideas I'm playing with. So if you're curious about that, make sure that you're at least subscribed to the Substack, even if it's just at the free level right now. That will make sure that you don't miss any of these episodes. Leave a review, leave a comment, tell me more of what's resonating, what you want to hear and talk and dive more into. I am all ears and open heart. Okay, that's good enough for now. Let's dive into the episode. Thank you so much for simply being here and sitting in this circle around the metaphorical fire with me and my guests. So, I mean, you remember, actually, we met it was like 5 years ago around this time. It was 2021, a little bit later on into the year, spring, I think, technically, maybe March. Do you remember when we met?
I mean, you said 5 years, and I was like, are you sure it's not been longer than that? Which I think speaks to, yes, I remember when we met. I remember you having a handheld mic. We were probably in a hotel. Where were we? In a hotel ballroom? What was the
But I was
setting?
on Zoom. I was on
You were
Zoom.
on Zoom. Ah, great. So you didn't have a handheld. Um, so maybe your presence was handheld in that gravitas, but like you just stood out, right? You stood out. It was a cohort of people who had worked at the same law firm you did, and you just kind of like you just carried yourself in a way that was like casual, calm, and confident, you know? It
I
was
like those
a stark
receipts.
contrast. Yeah. So I do remember it.
So this week is my 12-year quit anniversary from that law firm.
Wow. Wow. Okay. And I've also had on my podcast to talk about that, you know? Mhm.
So two things I want to say then about that is when I think about my time in big law, and I get asked about it because it is something that I talk about, and I think it serves as a steady anchor in the story of my adulthood that now I'm getting more and more I'm traveling away from that anchor further and further. 12 years, that's a decent amount of time. But it still is this steady thing. And I have a lot of things that I've processed about that time, but I have I could count on two hands, the really impactful things that have come out of that time. And one of them is certainly the relationships. And I count you as one of those beautiful surprises because we would not have met, I don't think, if you hadn't come in to lead this cohort of alumni and people on the cusp of leaving. That was really the people in transition, I think, was the group that you were holding the space for. And I just remember locking in on you too and being like, I'm so happy I met Emily.
Yes. I think it's possible we would have met years later. Because I think we share this. I know we share a couple things. One, like, where's the growth? Let's go get it. And not just like growth for growth's sake, but like for us, right? Knowing that kind of like what we're trying to cultivate, which is really sexy in my opinion. But also like the desire to retreat, the understanding of what it means to like step away and like take time. I mean, one of a couple of my therapy clients right now are women our age, in their 40s who are, have never done that, never taken a chunk. So I think maybe I would have signed up for one of your retreats somehow, or we would have met like on a mountain somewhere retreating. But even I haven't done that in a while. So it's low chances, but possible, you know?
I love that you feel like we would have met. I really love that because there is such a parallel to our paths. And I think you're right. A lot of the things that we're curious about are similar. But I also think, a real thing that we hold is this appreciation of inner work and self reflection and retreat. But also, you and I both have this kind of like cadence of hustle and like intensity that we're coming out of. And it's a lot of the women that we work with. And so I think that's a whole other side to it, is that this talk, an exploration about self understanding and who we're becoming is really rooted in a place of like reactivity to all the spaces where that hasn't been made possible for us as women.
100%. 100%. And I feel like one of the liabilities of being human is we have to experience it. Like you probably work, I know you work with and surround yourself with and love people, women and men who are holding on by a thread, you know? And I can give you the 7 books I'd recommend and 3 TED Talks and the 2 events and the whatever. But like you just have to bottom out. And I used to say in my work that I wanted to raise the floor for people, like but I actually that's not it anymore. It's kind of like I just want to be there when you hit bottom. That's it. I can't raise the floor for you. I thought I could. But like it's a true liability that I get to in my profession like really close the empathy gap. Like I get to be in people's lives, which is a privilege. It's like sacred. Um and I think therefore even I like have to experience it myself, you know? Like no one's preventing me from doing anything, which if you want to talk about parenting is like, oh, then we're all fucked. Can I swear on here?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I have. So we'll
Okay.
figure out
Okay,
how we
great.
That's good.
Yeah, I didn't know if it would have E on it or not, but I can certainly go either way.
I
Yes.
mean, I think I probably should have E on it. I think it's like we're in
Yeah.
E territory.
Yeah, I think
Um,
so.
so like another thing that I think about when I think of you then, so I know it's been 5 years because I was pregnant with my youngest kid and he was born that fall. And now I just today enrolled him for kindergarten for the fall. So like that's where we are. I know. But I just have watched you in. And I think this is something we also share in commonality, not like it's the same, but like I've watched you make changes and navigate kind of your own process of becoming in the last several years. Like, and it's been a really intense time, and it still is in like the general world around us. And so I think, oh, maybe the swiftness and the intensity with which like most humans are navigating those changes is real. But like, I always appreciate every time you come across my radar. I'm like, there she is kind of doing something a little bit different. And I just love that. I'm so enthralled by that.
Hmm. I have we ever hugged?
No, because we've never met in person. But
Yeah.
going back to your like, you're in a ballroom with a Nike. We did that last session of that cohort. I was in New York and you were in, I think Chicago must have been. And we were each in like conference rooms on that last session because it was that hybrid-y COVID time. Yes. But we've never met.
Yeah. Yeah, which I love that that is something that the past 5 years have taught me is like intimacy, which right now I am craving sure in person, but coming out of like, do I really need this? But like I feel like I've known you for 10 years. I like we've definitely hugged in my head, meaning that when I get the opportunity to meet you in person, I will like the hug will be like so epic. But to your point about the changes and like, doing things differently, that has, I've been really reflective as I've decided to sort of sunset my business in its current form. I have an LLC, so I'll just keep that for all sorts of things that I might do. But I really over the past 5 years have been craving collaboration and partnership. And I've tried to get to that intimacy in a number of different ways. And I really failed in some ways to like find what I was looking for. I fell into business ownership after being in a great partnership with someone we both know, Todd Connor. And then I was on my own. And then I was like, dating in real life and dating in business. And I found what I was looking for in real life. And I consider myself like eternally lucky to have found Arnie and to be a part of of a family now. And that I think kind of ruined me for like what I was looking for with intimacy that I crave with work. Like I want to get like everything's deep to me. So I just want to like have a space where we can create and collaborate on this work that we do of, helping people. And so I tried a lot of different things and then I just wound up getting burnt out trying. Um, and I never wanted to do it on my own. So then I was like, yeah, so the changes and like doing things differently, it's interesting, right? Because like Instagram or social media, like being perceived in that process, I think probably I did convey like a sense of confidence and like fierceness and direction. But I remember thinking many, many, many times, like, this is gonna end. Like this is gonna end. I don't know when or how. Like it's not gonna be like this forever. And at the time, it's not gonna be like this forever. And oh shit, what am I gonna do? But then as I went through this last season of owning a business, I was like, I kind of can't wait for this to end. Um, and this to end meaning like chasing the dollar, like chasing it, I was always selling, even when I didn't want to be selling. And like it's lonely. It was lonely for me. It's not lonely for everybody, but it was for me. I tried to not make it lonely and it never quite I didn't find my person to do that with. So transitioning to being a therapist again, but really like being like that's who I am. I'm not also doing but like that's what I'm doing. I have found this team that I work with, these two other women who are in their 50s actually for your next pod. Who I'm just like, hallelujah, Jesus, like I admire them, I respect them. I feel like a part of something. I always wanted that. But in the leadership development space, it was just I knew what I wanted and I couldn't find it. I couldn't find it. So all that is to say, you said you witnessed change. And yes, and doing it differently, maybe, but it was a slog. It was a real slog at the end. Um, and that didn't feel great. But I sort of got out before I bottomed out because I've definitely bottomed out too.
This is what I love about our exchanges, and I think this is what I appreciate so much about this like format of whatever this podcast is becoming. Is like, let's get below the perception, like, because it's so easy to look at each other on freaking social media and be like, that person has it figured out. That person seems like they're doing great. I don't know if that person has the same kind of like yearning and then failure or iterative whatever, but you're just like, I do and I am, and that's real. And I think like that's the conversation I'm interested in.
Totally.
Yeah.
It's
Okay.
like when people are like, not that deep. I'm like, no, everything's deep.
Yeah. I also think we're both extraordinarily like, I'm like, I always say, like, I am so intense to be married to because I'm always like, how are you? How's your inner life? Sam's like, we have like seen each other many times today. Like, I'm just trying to eat lunch. And I'm like, yes, and what about your heart? Okay, we're getting intimate. I love it. But like let's introduce you to our listeners to our fellow our fellow portal women. What is your name? And also go like, is there, and what are your pronouns? But also what is your name? And how is that who you are in this moment? Is there a feeling or a story that evokes for you?
So funny. My name is Emily Drake. Um, I love the name Emily. Uh, Real big in 1979 and in the surrounding area, years. I'm one of many Emilys. Part of what I talk about a lot is like I still haven't met one that I don't like. So it's kind of crazy. That's like a crazy track record. Drake is interesting. Drake is my married name from my first marriage, my only marriage. I've been in partnership with Arnie for 4 years. After I got divorced, I like, I got married young. Certainly never occurred to me to keep my maiden name, which is Foley, which is also dope. But Drake was kind of an upgrade, and then it's kind of a powerful 1-2. Emily Drake, 5 and 5. Um, but the professionally speaking, I was known as Emily Drake, so it never even occurred to me to be like Emily Foley. Like I came of age as Drake. That's how young I was when all that happened. We did get the question, Arnie and I, the other day from dear friends of ours, like, when you get married, if we get married, probably get married, um, will you become Niekamp? That's his last name. And I was like, no. And mostly it was like because I just don't want to go through the change of it all again. Like it's just women have that sort of lot to carry, right? So that's my name. She, her.
Mm-hmm. I don't know why this question feels like I want to ask it this way on the podcast, but I do know the one we just talked about. It's like it's so innocuous. What is your name? But like, I don't know. I feel like every woman has had this like, oh, this is how it fits into my identity, and that's what we're grappling with. So I love it. Okay, softball question because you've already answered it. If people are doing math, but would you tell us how old you are?
Yeah, I'm 46. I'll be 47 in July.
Wait, what's your birthday?
July 20.
Okay, that's we've definitely had this conversation because that's my kid's birthday and I'm the 25th. So you're cuspy. You're like Cancer almost Leo.
Yes. Yes, girl. Yes.
Hmm. I know that this all tracks. Okay, how old do you feel?
Ooh, these are so good, Catherine. Okay, I will say my access to pleasure, and I'm talking about all the kinds of pleasure. If you went to sex, that too, has never been higher. So in that way, I feel like, oh, I feel just like I'm like luging, like ice skating, like smooth, like that. I feel young. I feel young, but like thank God I didn't get this when I was 20 years, like 26, because I wouldn't know, I just wouldn't be as present for it. It would just be like this is what it's supposed to be like at 26. So again, I'm talking about sexual intimacy, but I'm also talking about how good relationships feel, how great it feels to read a book and talk about it, like intellectual intimacy, emotional intimacy. Like my intimacy is like, it feels forever young right now at 46. Physically, part of my story is like when I was my thinnest, I was having the least amount of pleasure in my life because my life was so restricted. So I'm recovering from burnout. I'm recovering from just some really traumatic endings in some ways in the last couple years. So my body has got pretty sedentary. Like I just didn't have a lot of willingness to be mobile. Which is like, if we're gonna talk like, Ayurvedic stuff, right? Like very what thank you. I mean, wired like hardcore, right? And like very encouraged to go to my pitta, but like it is a stretch. Um, so I feel physically sometimes I feel very old. I feel older. Like, on par with my mom, who's like 82. I don't feel particularly vital physically. Right. Um, so it varies. It kind of depends on like how do I feel, it depends on like what's at the forefront. And right now in this moment, I feel 40, like I feel 46. I feel like I know some stuff and I can say some things. And, that's fucking great. So it depends, but I do feel 46. I do.
I I appreciate your answers so much. Intellectual intimacy. I don't think I have ever heard that phrase, and I am like gonna bet yes. Let's go. I'm putting that in my pocket. And then
Yes.
also, I just feel like your answer about the physical stuff is like the exact opposite embodiment of like when someone's like, "How are you?" and they're like, "I'm fine." Like what you just said is the opposite. Like, it's not that you're not fine, but it's like, you're like, let me get like real. Let me think about this as I'm answering it. Let me be honest. Let me show the texture and the nuance. And like, that's what I want more. Like, that's the only interaction I want to have.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. I really think also like the body part of it, it's just like every piece of intimacy. It requires attending and nurturing, and like you can't do it all every day. Like I can't be emotionally available, physically strong. Like all of that feels like a lot to ask. So I'm very tolerant of of how I'm feeling about any of those particular things. Anyway, I interrupted you. You were going to ask something, I think.
Always keep
What?
talking. Always.
Good.
Okay,
Good.
next question is how would you introduce yourself if job titles, accomplishments, resumes, LinkedIn, like if none of that were what you were leading with, what would you say? How would you introduce yourself?
That so the first thing that came to mind was I'm a really good hang. Um the second thing that came to mind as I started to get self-conscious about that was like with a limit. Like I'm a good hang with like 2 to 4 people. After four, I start to be low a little bit. But I'm a good hang for a like richly curated, intentionally thought out time. And that does not mean like there's like party favors. It can. But like come over, watch the season finale of Heated Rivalry and like laugh and make sure there's like candy and Olive Garden takeout. Like I'm a really good hang for a cozy time, and I'm a really good hang for like just leaving better than you were when you got to hang. Um, and that's kind of like I think at 46 and after all that I've experienced leading up to this point, it is, I think, probably the greatest gift of the sabbatical that I just came off of, or the burnout recovery I just went through, or whatever you want to call it, that I have capacity to just want to say yes to invitations and then show up for them. So I like to, I'm a good hang. I'm a good hang. That's what I would say.
I love that answer. And I also think like I totally we gotta hang. But like there's a professional, like I can see knowing like a little bit more about your professional life, like how all those things track. Like that kind of quality is a through line for you too. So if you want to add anything about your professional whatever, your actual bio, you can, but what's up to you?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think the through line of my work, my whole has been I'm really good at asking questions and meeting you whoever you are where you're at. I'm also I mean I judge the shit out of everything, But I regulate that and I go to therapy for that. And so I'm able to really meet people without judgment, which makes me a person who, when you're in the shit, you can reach out to. And I get that a lot. So that is what also made me great when I was in the corporate world and in front of corporate spaces and had a big stage. Um, was that I kind of knew, I always knew how far I could push. And I'm very aware of when you're done. Like I'm just, but I want you to get to exactly that place. It's kind, I would imagine like it's with yoga, right? Like, you want that tension, but no, we're not in pain here. We're not collapsing. But that made me really great leadership and content creator and a coach, really good. I think as a therapist, now that I get to sort of fully be embodied in that work, it is I think the restraint is off, so I can push further, right? And I push myself. I'm not just talking about my clients. Like I'm pushing myself, but it feels like, like not everything in your life has to be hard, but I do want challenge. And this is a place in my life as a therapist where I'm like, give me all of the challenge. Like the more complex, the better, because it matters so much and it can help so much. So, yeah, I guess, I could prattle off like clients I've had and, accolades. It doesn't really track for me. I think the through line is like people that have been in a room with me are like, "Mm, yeah, I'd like to talk to her some more." That's that's the win, you
I
know?
love that. We'll make sure everyone can find you in all the whatever show notes, etc. Okay. Um, for podcast stuff. Okay, so what is one thing that 10 years ago you would be surprised to learn about you today?
Mm. So 10 years ago, I was kind of officially coming on board as CEO of the Collective Academy. So I was working with Todd, the founder, still, but I was moving into a role that would eventually I would take on and he would go on to his next great thing, which is what he's meant to do. He's so good at it. I'm really good at like something's good, I'll make it great. I'm not as good as like starting something and making it great. That's a little for me. I need some help with that. Um, so it's funny because there was this trend on social media and I tapped in for a second. I was like, what is going on right now? Go ahead. Yes. Did you
No, I
have
mean,
you
no, well, like I've seen this trend. My question has nothing to do with that, but you're right, that is happening. And you just brought that to my attention. I think this is also showing our age because I too was like, well, here's a picture of me from 2016, but also someone tell me what we're doing.
I know, totally. I like tapped in and immediately tapped out of, but what it did have me do was look at my photo reel and be like, if I were going to post something, like what would it even be? So your question though was about like 10 years ago, what was happening for me or
No,
what?
what would you
Yes.
10 years ago be surprised to like know about you
Okay.
today
Thank
in
you.
2026? Yeah.
Yeah. God bless, like getting back on track. Okay. I don't really know where this came from, but capitalism got me. Both my folks are teachers, so like it wasn't really, I mean, like, wasn't really in the house with us that making a lot of money was importante. But somewhere it got me. Maybe it was working at a Fortune 5 company right out of undergrad and being like, whoa, right? Like, they're rich people. So I think 10 years ago, I was fucking psyched. I was like, hell yeah, we're gonna kill it. I mean, come on, right? Like all the language is so masochistic or misogynist. We're gonna kill it. I'm gonna bring it in. I
Crush
had
it. Crush it.
what that?
Crush it. Crush it. I'm going to crush
Crush
it.
it. Yes. I had left a lucrative career just like 2 years before that, bottomed out. My body was like, you don't want to do this thing, right? So I was like, but then it's so seductive. I mean, if you're listening and you're like, I need to make a certain amount of money, I'm like, yo, I get it. I really do. I like nice things. Anyway, so thinking about me today, I think she would be like, man, you answered the knock at the door again, and you're going back, you're going deeper into what you love, even if it doesn't yield the cash you want. You're doing it again? Because I've done this before, but I was in a different place. And then I was building, I didn't have a lot of wealth, but like building some wealth, right? As running a company and having great clients, and everybody was repeat clients, and it was like really good. And I could keep going with that. But again, I got the knock on the door of like, you hate that. You don't want this. It doesn't matter. It's going to end. It's going to end, you know? And I'm not even saying like 10 years ago, I would be surprised that I answered the knock. I'd be like, there she goes again. Yeah, we did this, but you seem better now, Emily. You seem like really good. So let's see what happens. Are in a place of like feeling like 46. And let's see what shakes financially when you really answer the door and like just go with people you like and admire and respect, which I've never done. I've never done that. With the exception of joining Todd. Todd was like such a healing and nourishing relationship for me, coming out of like, quitting the thing and like wanting to do something new. But then capitalism got me. So I think that's what she would say. She'd be like, I'm not surprised, but I think it'll be even better this time. You know, I like that for me.
I like that for you too. And two things are coming to mind. Number one, your storytelling, you're sharing this theme that feels really potent and present to me. And I think it's one you tap into too. I mean, obviously, but it's like where the world of stories loses women is where everything is like on this straight and narrow path and like linear progression, and we're just like, it doesn't feel that way. Like we're so attuned to like the cycles of our lives, like whether we consciously know that or not. And many of us, myself included in moments, like forgets that because we are like bashed over the head by these things like capitalism or like here's the progress. And I think you're the one that said, I feel like this is an Emily quote where you're like, you've spent all this time climbing the ladder and then you realize the ladder was on the wrong wall. Is that you? Yeah.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. So your answers are just there. You're giving me that. You're giving us all that. You're like showing what it means to believe in those cycles and the cyclical nature, and that it's not bad. It just is how it is. Like when you said everything ends, like ain't that the truth? And yet you wouldn't believe it if you looked at like mainstream whatever or whatever is being thrust in front of your face, because it doesn't seem like everything ends, but we know this to be true. Uh, and and then I will share my own truthy truth too, which is like when I met you, I had been, I guess, 7 years out of Big Law. I mean, it was deep pandemic, and that was such a rattle to the way that I had been working. That was like another kind of discontinuity is the word that I like to use. And that comes from this really wonderful book. It's a little dated, but I'm sure that's what they're going to say about this podcast in 30 years. But um, it's called Composing a Life by Mary Catherine Bateson. And she talks about the concept of discontinuities in women's life. And like that really tracks for me. So like the pandemic it's just like this moment where you're like, it's reconfirming that you're not on a straight linear path that keeps progressing forever and ever and ever. And in the pandemic, it was like, wow, there's an interruption. What am I going to do? And like Sam and I in the background were like having these like arguments that were real. And it was like, yeah, capitalism, babe. And it's like, you get a job, you get a job. No, you get a job, because we both have always worked for ourselves since we've been together. And it was kind of obvious that like I was the one holding a law degree and had this like past. And so my dip back into the like toe into the water of that whole program was being like, should I go back to big law? And that was 5 years ago. And you know what? I bet that that will happen again, that I will be like, should
Mhm.
I go back to that?
Yeah, of course it will. Of course. Right. Yes. Yes. And we didn't ask for that. I didn't ask for, it's like, that's why I'm like, where did this, like, the only answer, where did this come from, is like fucking everywhere. Fucking everywhere. And like I can hear myself saying like, well then, but how do you buy things? How do you afford nice things? How do you And I would love to say like that was not forefront, like prefrontal cortex. It definitely was. It was the most important thing. And and then I like thought that I could be myself and pursue that, right? And I might be able to. But I certainly couldn't keep going on that highway. And like you will laugh at this too. It was like, well, maybe I'll just get a job. I mean, the first thing I did when I decided to, stop, I say sabbatical, burnout recovery, whatever, when I decided to stop was I stopped selling. Like I just stopped, I like tried to just turn the volume down on that. And I was like, I need a resume, which I'm laughing because of like with love, the hypocrisy of like, I remember people would be like, I need a resume. And I'd be like, fuck, resumes don't matter. Like, it's just chronology. But I became obsessed and I was like, I need this. And I got a great, like, if you need a great resume, I have someone who can help you with that. But like, get a job, get a job, get a job, And I just couldn't, Catherine. It's like if someone today was like, and believe me, like I have literally nothing to say about GLP-1s or diets because I'm not taking them and I don't know, everyone's different. But if someone was like, Emily, because body image and weight are also like right up here, not because I asked for it, although it was in my house, but like it's everywhere. It's everywhere. And so someone was like, I will pay you. I actually like think about this sometime, like how much would someone have to pay me to go on a diet? Because I know they don't work. It's like, how much would someone have to pay me to get a job? Because I know that's not what I want. And it's like 10 million to go on a diet. And I don't even know how many million to get a job. And I'm saying that now, but I have an employer now. Like I'm working at a therapy practice. So it's not entirely like I'm averse to it. I think what we're really saying is the system. I don't want to work in the system. I can't work in the system.
There's like so, I mean, I think, well, like every single one of my guests, and now this is what I'm saying to you too. I'm like, we need to have a follow-up conversation, I think, on just this topic. And what I'll say about the resume, my like little bulletin board is over there. But when I was leaving Kirkland, I like made a resume because at that point, people were like up or out, up or out. And I was one of the first to go because I was like, I don't want to keep going on this track. Mostly for all the things that we've been talking about, where I was like, that was a version of me, but it was not one that felt like it was in service of like what I came here to do. And it's nothing against lawyers, no, but like I just knew that the world did not need me to be another corporate litigator, and that staying in that on that path was like really killing me, like physically and like my spirit. But I made a resume before I left, and it has hung behind, like when I met you, I think it was right behind me in my old office. And it's my resume. And I have this printout, and now it's 12 years old. And it's just this funny reminder of like, there that is.
Yeah. Yeah, there that is. And I thank you for saying like you don't hate, like it's not about being a lawyer. It's not about even about a big law. It's not even about like I mean, this is all very deeply personal stuff, right? What I think I would want someone listening to take away is like, I can't do it. I, Emily Drake, can't opt into the system of most companies, probably. I mean, probably, right? That doesn't mean out there that they don't exist. I think there are organizations you and I both would be like, okay, put me on the payroll. I like what you're doing here. But I think there is just this invitation to say, I got to get a job. And that is really true for a lot of people. So I guess it's there. I think I'm feeling self-conscious and maybe a little guilt of like despair. But that is my story, you know? But I also want to be and am deeply in community with women and men who really want to be SVP and really want to be CEO. And I think they can, and I think they'll be great. I just know I can't go there. I can't. Like, I'm not built for it. I'm just not. And then I grieve because I'm like, does that mean I won't be rich? And the unanswerable question, right? Like, we don't know yet. I don't.
And then you're back to the circle of like, does it matter if I'm rich? Why do I want? I mean, it's like, yes, that is so real. That is so real. Oh, okay. We're gonna pick one category. So listen, and then I'm gonna get into the portal wisdom. But I want to ask you one more kind of like freewheeling and dealing question. So just listen, and then you can tell me which of these you would like me to ask you your final kind of free form question about. Marriage, body, motherhood, friendship, sex and desire. That's one. Work and career. That's one. Creativity or appearance and aging. Any of those feel curious?
Is that good? Here's what's happening in my head. I'm like, should I go for the one I don't want to like that? Because that's fun, right? Like the one where like, oop, can't. Let's do friendship.
What friendships have you outgrown and which have grown with you?
My first like immediate thought, like my head just went like this, is just sad. I have a couple friends who would say like being a friend is the most important thing to me. That has not been who I've been. I think, and that I say that with love. I'm like, I've outgrown, so I'll answer the question. I've outgrown friendships that are not reciprocal. That can mean like I really want to be friends with you. And like reading minds like you don't have it for me. And that's okay, but makes me sad. Um and the ones that I feel I've outgrown where I walk away feeling so in my body where I feel it is like it's right here, very tense. I'm kind of like tired, but like I got enough sleep and I had enough coffee. Just the draining of this is not vibes. You're not a good hang, like.
And Emily's a good hang.
And it's funny because
go ahead.
Go ahead. Yeah, go. No, you, this theme. Go.
The theme of reciprocity has come up with every woman that this any friendship. I have a couple friendship questions on my piece of paper, but the theme of reciprocity has been in every response to any question about friendship, which is probably like any like other adult relationship that you could imagine too. It's huge. And like, do we earn that? Do we make our way into that? Is that something that comes with being in your 40s? Is that something that I could claim earlier or you could claim earlier? I'm curious about that.
Well, I will tell you there is at least one person I could give you her phone number and you could call her and she would be like, Emily wasn't there for me. So I will say I take notes from people I love. I try to imperfectly. But what really hurt about that particular person and that friendship was I had no idea. What she needed was something I wasn't giving. It turns out that by her admission, we hadn't been close in a while. This was sort of a terminus after some contemplation that I wasn't contemplating. So I received that. It hurts. I still think about it. I still think about her. I think that's the indelibility of, but I'm not like checking her Instagram. I'm not thinking, I mean, I'm not wishing her harm, but I'm also like I can move on and let go. But I do grieve that. I grieve that anyone, especially knowing like what I'm most proud of, would think that I wasn't there for them, right? Um, but I've also outgrown people that don't give me feedback. Like I don't, if you love me, tell me, right? Conflict is good. I think those that have grown with me are a little bit of like the friends that are when I was in high school, people were like, "You're so serious. You're too deep." Like that was the, "Don't you ever have any fun?" And I'm like, "Being deep is fun, dummy." Uh so the friends that have grown with me are my friends where everything's deep, who are, and by the way, we have like it should go without saying, like we have a lot of fun. Like it's fun for me. That is my fun. So there it is. So those are the friends that have grown with me who are kind of like, oh my God, yeah. And what did you think? And how about this? And now this. And um, that intimacy, that is when I said intellectual intimacy, also that emotional intimacy of just like, we're in it. Um, those are the friends that have grown with me. And then I also feel like the friends who have expectations that are clear, or the friends that have no expectations, those have grown with me. Um, Yeah, that's a great question.
I loved your answer. Okay, 40 portal wisdom. I'm gonna pull, and it's so cool because I try to pull something. Well, I won't reveal my method too much, but this is what I pulled for you. So this is a contribution from someone who at the time when they wrote this, they're now 40, but they were like 39 and three quarters. And so they answered the prompt, which was like, what are your questions? What are your like longings, desires? What are your open questions? And this is, I'm going to read not all of her answer, but I'll read a lot of it because it's sweet. It's like, yeah, it meanders a bit. Okay. What a wonderful prompt. I wish I spent more time reflecting so that maybe this under 40 prompt rolled off the tongue a little easier. But I know you would say not to overthink it and just put out whatever comes to you. Easy breezy, right? Okay. So I feel like my desire is to be more selfish, do less, feel more, just more. Does that make sense? We spend so much time being so cerebral, and I would actually like to detach a little from my must get shit done brain. And to that, I just say, oh, that I'm so, so glad to have a friend like you that reminds me that I don't have to just always get shit done. But the detach from the get shit done brain and to do less and feel more. Tell us, Emily, where does that take you?
I have so many questions for her. She's a good time. She's a good hang, whoever that is. I can tell. Um, feel more. Amen. I was at book. So I'll just first thing, common humanity. Me too, sis. Like me too. Do less. Not for. I now feel like do what is more what I think about. I think when I hear do less, I hear like overwhelm. I relate to that. Like you're doing, but you're like offline doing. Like I hear one like a craving for presence that comes up with this, but like the cerebral, like living from your neck up. This comes as someone who I'm deeply fed by intellectual anything. I mean, put me in a class. Arnie's like, what class are you taking now? How about now? What are you doing? Right. I love it. So that I feel so powerful when I'm in my head and learning and living. But it's not, I think part of what I would say in response is like, it's not disconnected from my body and my heart. Like my brain working, making connections, having insight. Man, my heart is like on fire when that's happening. It makes me juiced up to talk to Arnie and then maybe we have sex. You know what I mean? Like I'm like, if I'm excited, like that's like, you want to feel more, you want to feel excited. You want to feel like, yeah, right? Like, you're shaking, like you can do things. And I would love to hear like when does she feel like that? You know? And that's what you do. And you do more of that. Like but that I think is so important to pay attention to when you're like, oh my God, this was a great day or a great moment, or like it's so important. Um, but for me, it very much is like the way to feel excited is to like, it's like a challenge, it's challenge, learning, love people, like, and then I'm like vibing. So that's what comes up for me listening to her. Very relatable. Oh, yes.
Yeah. I want to push you a little bit because you're really good at this. And like, so I'm hearing you suggest just pay attention to like what gets you excited. Like pay attention to those like breadcrumbs of like where you feel more alive. Because I think what a lot of women can really resonate with is like we are just stuck in this autopilot of like get shit done. Like there's so many tasks that we are responsible for completing, whether it's at work or in our family lives or whatever, all the places that we show up. So like I think what you're saying is like, so just start paying attention to like what does pull you out of that mindset. And I wonder if you have like one more tool to give someone who's like really stuck on that hamster wheel of like, all I do is just have to get shit done. And like, that is like my primary driver focus responsibility. And I'm so exhausted from just getting shit done. Like, do you have one more thing to tell a woman who's feeling that?
Mm-hmm. Well, the antidote to overwhelm, which is a little bit of the emotion that I would attach to that, is the nothing. Like it's just and I don't mean like you're lying on the floor staring at the ceiling, though I don't not mean that. I think the first thing that came up for me was a very practical, I'm not a paid ambassador, but to like get off your phone. Like brick your phone and like get your girls together. I say girls, but it could be guys too. And like when you start to feel, oh God, I can already feel this like in my own body, but like that discomfort where you're just like, I need something. Like just I would say like reduce the comparison that you're gonna make to other people if I'm not doing enough, which I think is the propulsion to like do more shit, right? And don't do. And that's, oh my God, it's so fucking simple to say. Um, but
Simple, not easy. Like that's the
yeah,
reality.
right.
Yeah.
Right. But what will you do with that space? Like, will you reach for your vibrator? Will you turn on something you might like to watch? Like, will you be like, you know what I would love to have for lunch today? Like macaroni salad. Like, what will come up? I don't know. But turn off the comparison as much as you can and like do what feels good. Like, when did we stop doing what feels good? In and not trusting that if it feels good, you should do it.
And I think that the like thesis of this podcast and talking to women is like, and then is there a moment does midlife then invite us to reclaim our ability to do what feels good and to own it? I think that's the thesis. I think that's like what I'm working with in all of these conversations. Thank you for adding your wisdom to the portal. I mean, it's always here to talk to you.
Yes. What does it look like inside the portal? Like if it were a physical.
You know, you and I have been talking a little well, yeah. Well, you and I have been talking a little bit about like funny like websites and stuff in our text messages.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
I wore this like emerald green dress to my party that I borrowed
I
from my
love it.
sister-in-law. Yes. And I don't really do color, but I'm like experimenting with it in my 40s. And so the branding for the 40 portal like is centered around this emerald green color, which is like so not like that is like feels fresh and inviting to me. And then there's like a red and a blue. And then the soundtrack is like I have like license-free music that I'm using for the podcast. It's like, but it's like a guitar riff and it's modeled after the first, like my feeling when I hear it is like the first few bars of the Rolling Stones song Beast of Burden. So that's like it's like a bluesy guitar riff. I think it's really sexy in there. I think it looks, it
Hell
feels,
yeah.
it sounds like I think it's a little wild and psychedelic inside the portal. That's
Fuck yeah. Yeah. Yes.
so good.
Yes.
Oh
Okay,
my gosh.
good.
Oh,
I'm
what a
in.
joy you are. What a joy you are. I will let
Thank you,
everyone find
Catherine.
you. Mm.
Yes, let them find me. Love chatting.
Thank you, Emily. Ooh, what an episode. What an episode. Oh my gosh, living from the neck up. Like the thesis question of this whole podcast, does midlife invite us to reclaim our ability to do what feels good and own it? Just let it sink in. Let it wash over you and then send this episode to a friend who needs to hear it. Thank you so much for listening. I love showing up to have these conversations with women. I want to be in conversation with you. So leave a comment, leave a review. I will write you back. Send your questions into the portal. Send your advice into the portal. And maybe your words will end up on a future episode. Okay, I'm Catherine Zach. This is the 40 Portal, babe. Welcome, welcome, welcome. And I will see you right back here.